All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for a brand new video series that I've been wanting to do for a long time. We're going to be calling this series Redneck Revolution, History in the Making. What is history in the making? Is it my history through the dance world with the Redneck Revolution? No, it is not. It is the history of dance itself. In particular, the different styles, genres, slash disciplines of dance that we have come to know. Now, there is a lot of information out there on the internet. Some people do a deep dive to get you this information. So by no means am I an expert on the subject. I'm just somebody with a lot of experience, and I'm somewhat of a history nerd to begin with. Now, if you're the average dancer, you're probably not going to care anything about the history of these genres or disciplines. But if you care about your trade craft and you're kind of like me, a nerd with history, you may find this very informative. Now, for this first episode, I want to talk about my favorite couple style dancing. Okay? And no, I'm not talking about fixed pattern partner dancing. It's a style that I grew up to enjoy once I got into organized social dance. And it is an American staple in most country nightclubs around the country and around the world. What am I talking about? I am talking about two-step, or as some people like to refer to it as Texas two-step, or you may hear it referred to, if you know your ballroom and your history, as poor man's foxtrot. Now, a lot of people out there think that two-step is an American invention. However, not really. Not really. Not when you delve into the history of the dance style itself. It is actually a derivative of European waltz. It started in the 1800s in Europe. And please forgive me, I do not speak French, so I may chop this all to hell. Valse à deux temps, or waltz two-step. Okay, how did it differ from traditional waltz? Well, it added more kick steps into it. As time went on, it caught on here in the United States, in particular around 1890 with Philip Sousa music, who is kind of the godfather of the foxtrot sound. The Americans adopted it, created what we know as modern day foxtrot. And from foxtrot, we ended up with two-step. How did we end up with two-step? Well, you can thank square dancers in Texas for developing what we know as modern-day two-step, because they had been in New York where foxtrot was being done in the ballrooms, in the dance halls, and was very, very popular. Learned it, took it back to Texas, and my eye's itching for some weird reason, but we'll keep on through this. And they kind of changed things around a little bit to develop what we know as two-step today. What is the difference between the two? Well, foxtrot has the same 2-4 or 4-4 counting beat that goes slow, slow, quick, quick. And we know two-step or Texas two-step is being quick, quick, slow, slow. The two can actually be intertwined in this how you dance them with the different turns and so on and so forth. Things that I've learned in foxtrot, I've transferred over into doing in two-step. Now, it got called the poor man's foxtrot because more common people were doing it rather than doing it in the ballrooms, with the hoity-toity and perfect posture with Buffy's taking her around the floor, into doing it just in the neighborhood dance halls and out on the street. It does have its influence with the people from Appalachia. We're talking the Scots and the Irish, and also the Mexicans helped to develop what two-step is today. Now, for a long time, it was popular in local social circles to be doing two-step, especially in Texas. In Austin area, it was huge. It did fall out of favor for a while after, I believe it was 1950, 1955, somewhere in there. It was not as much mainstream with the common people. It wasn't until the mid-70s with the movie Urban Cowboy that all of a sudden The Texas style two-step or poor man's foxtrot became mainstream and popular again, and then you started seeing it everywhere. And that includes into clubs that wouldn't normally be considered country music. Now, it is traditionally danced to country music. However, if you can find that rhythm in other styles of dance, or other styles of music, I should say, or genres of music, you can also do it as well. You can also do it to a traditional foxtrot sound song. What has changed over the years, like in the 1970s, we saw the advent really heavy in the clubs of what they called the honky tonk hold. That's where, traditional lead hand, but the guy draped his arm up around the woman's neck and she put her hand in the crux of his elbow. However, fast forward, you end up with UCWDC, what we kind of call, jokingly refer to as Western ballroom these days. It went back to a more ballroom style hold and posture. You can do it in an open position, sweetheart position, all different kinds of positions in dance to do two-step. Now, other things that have changed over the years, especially in the clubs and definitely in competition, is not doing the aerials. If you came up with two-step from the 70s and beyond into the 90s, you did see a lot of people doing aerial tricks with their two-step. You even saw it in UCWDC competitions in the Outlaw division. They have been banning that in competition because people were getting injured. Women were getting dropped on their head because their partner didn't know how to do the lift properly. They weren't practiced very well. And they ended up being sloppy and people were getting hurt. So it got banned unless you were in like the superstar division. However, we're starting to see a resurgence with country swing of those aerials coming back into play. And hopefully these people that are trying these tricks are spending a lot of time practicing them. Now, why was the Outlaw division so fun? Is because you got to see a lot of this stuff. You got to see things that you don't normally see in competition. Even today's two-step competitions can be very boring for me to watch because they don't do some of the tricks that they used to do, tunneling through, into a pretzel, things like that. Very, very advanced moves that I learned years ago aren't being done today that I think should come back. But that's for a different series altogether. We'll talk about that another time. So, brief synopsis. Two-step actually originated in Europe with European waltz, came to America, became foxtrot, went from foxtrot into what we now know as two-step. Where is the future of two-step going? Well, we already know that there are different variations of two-step out there. And I will try and cover the origins of these as we go along through this series. Some of what two-step is branched out in is what is called triple two. There's also an Arizona two-step, a Kansas City two-step, and of course, one of the most flowy styles of two-step, nightclub two. So that's it for me for this episode. I hope I gave you some information that you would like. And you found it a little bit entertaining, but if you want more, there is a lot of resources out there that talk about this exact subject. That's it for me this round. Don't look for another episode for a few days at least while I research what comes next. We'll catch you all later.